What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I wanted to showcase some CORVIKNIGHT gameplay during Go Battle Week. It was just barely released, and this Pokemon sharing the same typing as Skarmory is a very interesting meta addition. Sand Attack, Sky Attack, and Iron Head is likely going to be the moveset of choice, but you can run Payback potentially as well if you want coverage against the Ghost types. But on this team, I felt Iron Head's speed was a little bit better than Payback coverage. If you want to see my battles live, I stream daily at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, where you can see live insights in my gameplay and see my teams early. I'd love to see you there. The link to that is down in the description. But without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what CORVIKNIGHT can do. Alright, let's get right on into game number one. We have our Annihilate in the lead up against the normal type Pokemon Diggersby. This matchup is fantastic for us, but our opponent instantly stays swapping to a Shadow Drapion, and honestly, I didn't know exactly what to do here. I think that CORVIKNIGHT is a decent answer here to Drapion, but it's not a hard wall, at least not as much as you'd want it to be, so I'm going to chip it down here, potentially try to catch an Aqua Tail with our CORVIKNIGHT, and see what we can do now. We do have super effective Sand Attack, and Poison Sting damage is going to be resisted, so we'll see how this matchup's going to play out, but you can see our Sand Attack's doing almost no damage here. We can't even get a full farm down against this before they get to a third charge move. This is not looking great. Sand Attack is not the highest damage fast move in the game, obviously, but CORVIKNIGHT is such an awkward Pokemon sometimes in these scenarios. I'm forced to throw the Iron Head, which is a little bit unfortunate. Iron Head will get the knockout against this Drapion. We will keep switch advantage, but Drapion putting a lot of damage in against both my Annihilate and against my CORVIKNIGHT here. In comes their final Pokemon, though. It's going to be a Galarian Corsola. Luckily, we have our Shadow Drapion in the backline for us, and we can reach a Sky Attack here to put them into range where Crunch from our Drapion could potentially knock them out later on. Sky Attack actually even draws a shield here, which is even better for us because now I know we can just use a shield with this Power Gem potentially, and then as long as we swap when they swap, we should be in a very good spot. We have a lot of energy left over on our Annihilate. We can just go for close combats against that Diggersby if it ever comes back in, but our opponent actually opting to stay in this matchup for just a second, going for this Crunch, getting as much damage as we can, potentially putting it into Rage Fist range, but our opponent ends up shielding that move and trying to catch the charge attack here. Luckily, I don't let that happen. I come in with our Annihilate, I go for the close combat, and now I have a Crunch loaded, I have a Rage Fist almost loaded for that Corsola. All I have to do is land a move here with my Annihilate, and then counter down, and then land a move once again against that Corsola, and we should have this game. In comes the charge move. They need 2 fire punches to knock us out, but they're not going to be able to reach it here before we can counter them down. In comes our Rage Fist. We are in range where only one Astonish is going to take it to knock out our Annihilate, but this should be a fantastic position to be in. Once again, we have that Crunch loaded. All we have to do is throw the energy here and take the win. Didn't even mention, we are using a shiny Shadow Drapion here. It is a very new Pokemon. I got it like literally just last night. I TM'd it off. It's not the best stats, but I wanted to try it out today because it is a beautiful shiny. So I guess we get to look at that here in today's video as well. Next game going to be an Annihilate into Annihilate mirror matchup. Very neutral lead, obviously. The one who wins CMP, though, dictates this matchup. And unfortunately, my Annihilate here ends up losing the CMP. That was actually a little bit surprising to me because I built this Annihilate with a little bit more attack stat, but our opponent, they must have a super attack-weighted ape right now. Rage Fist does end up drawing their shield. We no-shielded the first one because I knew I could survive it, but these Rage Fists are doing quite a bit of damage to us, and our opponent actually is going to let us get to another charge. It looks like they're going to go for a 2-shield farm down and have a boosted Annihilate against our backline. With that said, Shadow Drapion at this point should be able to land a Crunch, potentially either knocking this thing out or putting them very low and neutralizing most of this thing's energy. Rage Fist is going to get shielded, and they end up catching on a Dugong. Good catch by them, but this Crunch is still going to do a massive amount of damage. Probably get a 2-shot against this if we can get a debuff. No debuff, unfortunately, but we're still in a very good position where we can land a Crunch in just a second. I'm going to CMP here because I knew they were likely going to throw on alignment. I wanted to get this move off so I didn't have to shield my Drapion at this point. Crunch does end up coming through. It doesn't get a debuff once again, but they CMP us, so all of this energy is going to go down the drain for our opponent. I can no-shield this move, farm down with CORVIKNIGHT, and hope that the backline is going to be a Pokemon or whatever it's going to be in the back that I could sweep with our flying and steel-type Pokemon. It's going to be an Annihilate that comes back in. I try to make the catch. They were almost going to get to a Rage Fist, but they actually called that, and unfortunately for us, that is looking so bad now. I have to shield up this move. I could have just thrown the Iron Head, but unfortunately for us, they did end up over farming here. I'm going to go for the Iron Head right now. This should do enough to knock this Pokemon out. Is the final Pokemon going to be a pick that CORVIKNIGHT can beat? This is looking good. It's a Shadow Drapion, right? Surely we're going to be able to win this matchup, right? The only issue is Sand Attack is not the highest damaging fast move in the game, and Sky Attack as well, not doing too much damage itself. Sky Attack going to come through, do a decent chunk, but that's not like a Brave Bird from Skarmory back in the day. Sky Attack not quite enough here to knock them out, and they are back-to-back charges. Crunch #1 comes through. Even an Aqua Tail at this point would probably knock us out. CORVIKNIGHT unfortunately not able to win this game. I failed to catch, so honestly that one's kind of on me, but even still, CORVIKNIGHT not able to take out the Poison and Dark-type Pokemon on the backline. That's kind of sad. Alright, next game, Annihilate up against a Primeape, a very, very neutral lead matchup here. They have Rage Fist, and I do hard win the 2-shield if I want to invest shields early, but I don't normally like going down shields this early on into the game, especially when I know I survived this Rage Fist. Our opponent is going to opt for a Rage Fist of their own and swap in to a Charge Bug. This is so awkward. I don't actually have a hard response to this. There is not too often where you can save up a Charge Bug in the Go Battle League and not be hard punished by a ground type, but my team has no hard punish here, so a very safe play for my opponent in this specific game. I do have a crunch ready to go with our Shadow Drapion. This should either draw a shield or do massive damage to this Charge Bug. Fortunately, it does go through. If they ended up shielding that, this matchup could get a little bit more uncomfortable because I don't know how I would take this Pokemon out. With that said, it still has quite a bit of HP on it. I don't think I can farm this down with either my Annihilate or my Corviknight before they're going to be able to get to another charge move. So what that probably means is I have to come back in with my Annihilate, go for a Rage Fist in just a second here, and try our best to ramp up with Ape and maybe win this game, depending on what that final Pokemon's going to be. Rage Fist is going to come through. It does knock out the Charge Bug. In comes their final Pokemon, a Shadow Quagsire, one of the squishiest Pokemon in the game. But with that said, Shadow Quagsire is going to be able to shield up this Rage Fist, probably farming all the way down, and it has a lot of play here into Corviknight. With that said, they instantly swap out, though, to their Primeape here. Sand Attack is not doing anything to this Primeape, but it is putting it into range where Iron Head would knock out. Rage Fist is adding up against us as well. I'm going to overfarm as much as possible here, go for the Iron Head at the last second. I need as much energy as I can so I can get to 2 Sky Attacks against that Quagsire before they can knock out my Corviknight. Our opponent does opt to let that move through, and it's going to be down to our Corviknight in the endgame here. Are we going to have enough damage and energy to knock out this Quagsire before they can knock us out with either a Stone Edge or just a ton of Aqua Tails? I do shield that first move. We have another shield ready to go, but this Quagsire is very quick to charging energy right now. I know they are close to another charge attack, maybe even close to a third right now, so I need to reach this move. We do end up CMPing here. They had back-to-back Aqua Tails, so this CMP is absolutely crucial right now. I go for the Sky Attack. Is this enough to knock out? If it is, then we're going to win this game. If not, I'm going to have to try our best to fast move this down before we can get to yet another Aqua Tail to knock out my Annihilate. They don't quite knock them out here, but I do sneak in one counter before they can react and throw the Aqua Tail against us. Now I need to try to Sand Attack this down before that final Aqua Tail is going to be reached. In comes our Corviknight. Sand Attack just barely takes out the Quagsire and closes the endgame. GG's to them. All right, next game, Annihilate against Azumarill. Terrible lead matchup. We have 2 Pokemon in the back that can deal with this. Instantly say swap my Shadow Drapion and see what my opponent wants to do here. Poison Sting is super effective. Crunch as well is going to be able to desync the Switch Clock, but it's not going to do too much damage to them if they opt to let this move through. They do no shield it, obviously. They would never want to shield a move here unless I was running Sludge Bomb, but that is a very rare moveset, and our opponent likely not expecting me to actually have that. I shield an Ice Beam bait, and in comes my opponent's Shadow Drapion of their own. Aqua Tail is going to try its best here to chip down this Pokemon, but this is looking a little bit uncomfortable. I do end up winning CMP, it looks like, which is helpful. This Shadow Drapion, as I was talking about, is shiny, has a little bit more attack than normal, so it does help out. Oh, I guess that wasn't a CMP. Never mind. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. I'm going to desync the Switch Clock, go in with my Annihilate, and try to knock out this Shadow Drapion with a Rage Fist if I can. I do have the move loaded. If this is enough to knock out, then there's a chance here we can win this game, depending on how they play this out. In comes the Rage Fist. Our opponent, no shields, it knocks out, but their final Pokemon is going to be revealed, a Galarian Corsola that gets a massive 4 Astonish farm down. That is going to be a little awkward for us right now because our Shadow Drapion is in range where a Power Gem would knock us out. We don't have enough energy to reach the amount of crunches we would need, so I'm going to come in with our Corviknight, try to drain energy here, and see what our opponent wants to do. They are building up so much energy right now. I was hoping that they would throw the Astonish and the Nightshade instantly so I could swap into my Shadow Drapion, but they played it so smart. They banked a move here, and they come back in with Azumarill. I can go for Sky Attack against this. I know it's going to do a decent chunk of damage, but it's not going to be quite enough to KO, and I don't think that's even close to Sand Attack farm down range before they can reach a charge move here. With that said, I am very close to an Iron Head. If I can bank a charge move here, farm down with my Drapion, and then have some energy in the backline with my Crunches and my Iron Heads, there's a chance I can whittle down that Corsola enough where we can win this game. I am 1 Sand Attack away from my Iron Head, so I have to make sure that we can trip this down and draw a shield to make sure that this Corsola here is not going to be able to take out both our Drapion and our Corviknight. At that point, I was able to land a Crunch. I'm going to be able to now land this Aqua Tail. It should either draw their final shield or just get the knockout. They do end up shielding it, but keep in mind, we have energy on Corviknight. We just need 1 Sand Attack. We go for it, and we reach the Iron Head, barely able to overcome this backline. Corviknight able to close out this game with an Iron Head into the Corsola. GG's to them. Very close matchup. Next game, what are we going to see? Annihilate up against the Diggersby. Fantastic lead this time. I'm going to try our best here to keep switch advantage if I can, because our Shadow Drapion doesn't want to see this matchup. Once again, a Shadow Drapion safe swap here, and I didn't really have a great answer to it. Unfortunately, I was not able to make the catch here on the Crunch like I was trying to, but that's still fine. I'm going to try our best here with our Corviknight to come in and whittle this thing down. But as you can tell, super effective ground type damage. Once again, not doing that much damage to this Shadow Drapion. I'm going to try my best to keep switch advantage, but this is so awkward. They do go for a Crunch. Not quite enough damage damage to two-shot us here, but after the poison stings, they might be able to farm us down if they want to invest a lot of shields. With that said, we can get a lot of shields from them right now, and if they go down 2 shields, it's not like my Shadow Drapion doesn't have some sort of play into that Diggersby. Ironhead coming through, our opponent is likely going to let this go, but if they do shield it, we'll play it up by ear, but they do let it go, and in comes that Diggersby. This is going to be a little uncomfortable because Sand Attack is not the highest damaging fast move, not doing too much damage to this Diggersby, and I know that Sky Attack as well, even though it's a decent charge move, not quite enough here to two-shot a Diggersby. They'll get a full farm down, meaning they'll have 100 energy coming out of this matchup if they want to, and if they do that, then this is going to be a lot of effort for our Annihilate to try to overcome. Our opponent, though, instantly swapped out to a Toxapex instead. This Pokemon, not exactly the worst case scenario to see, but I am very worried about the amount of energy that they have stored on that Diggersby. In comes the Crunch. It will chip them down. No debuff, unfortunately. If I got a defense drop, then the next Crunch would threaten shields, and it would make it a lot easier for our Annihilate to close out this game. Brian does end up doing a decent chunk of damage, but at this point, I think I have to save my shields for all of the energy that they have in the backline on that Diggersby. Crunch is going to come through right now. If they end up shielding this, that's good. That's at least one shield out of the way, but I need to get yet another shield from them if I want to have any chance. Yet again, no debuff, unfortunately, on that move, but I can reach another Crunch in just a second here. Maybe put them very low or potentially knock them out. Our opponent, though, ends up going for the combo play against us, and because of that, I just have to let this go. I can't really shield this when I need the shield for my Annihilate, and I'm going to try to go for a full farm down here and throw energy against the Toxapex to win this game. They're likely going to throw a Scorching Sands here. Looks like that is exactly what they do. Luckily, no debuff, but we don't get as much energy as I need. I think at this point, unless I make a catch, this game could be very uncomfortable. I'm going to go for a Close Combat. I know they're going to no-shield the first charge move. Close Combat does do a little bit more raw damage than a Rage Fist would, but not quite enough damage to knock out this Pokemon. And now what I'm going to need to happen is I need to fast move them down with my Annihilate plus my Corviknight here, or I need to make a catch. No catch happens. They throw instantly. I wasn't expecting it, and now because of that, I have to try to go for a Sand Attack down. But Sand Attack, not a great move. Corviknight very low. We get Poison Jab down before we can fast move them down. Very well played by them. Unfortunately, GG's to my opponent. Next matchup here, Gastrodon in the lead. A fantastic lead matchup for us just because we don't want this to be anywhere near our Shadow Drapion. With that said, it can be a little bit awkward with Body Slam baits and potentially Earth Power nukes, so I'm going to have to respect that potentially. I'm going to go for the Rage Fist. Our opponent does opt to shield it up here, which is fantastic news for us, and in comes their first charge move. I can call it, or I could shield it, depending on how we want to play. We call the move. Our opponent ends up no shielding or just throwing the body slam, and we win that game there. GG's to them. All right, next game here, what are we going to see? It's an Annihilate in the lead up against a Shadow Kanto Marowak, another Mud Sapper lead, actually. So our Drapion wants to avoid this at all costs. Our Corviknight wouldn't mind being here, but the thing is, it likely will never line up into this, so I just have to brute force this matchup with my Fighting and Ghost-type Pokemon. In comes the Rage Fist, boost my attack stat as much as I can, so these counters are going to start doing real damage to the Shadow Pokemon, but they are doing a lot of Mud Sap damage to me as well, and they will outpace me to the second Bone Club. Our opponent is staying in, though, so our Drapion is not going to have to deal with this as much, and now I know I can knock them out with my next Rage Fist if they opt to let it go, but we'll have to see if they do, or if they're going to value their Marowak and try to Mud Slap me down even further. Rage Fist number 2 going to come through. Our opponent likely going to no-shield, but if they do shield, I guess we'll play it by ear. They do let it go, and in comes a Toxapex. We have our Corviknight for this in the back line, and we are also able to potentially reach a charge here with Annihilate. I think I probably should have gone for a Close Combat here. I likely will not reach a second Rage Fist, but that's still fine. A lot of chip damage here with these Rage Fists, and despite not getting another charge move here, getting them deep into the yellow. In comes the Corviknight, and the final Pokemon in this game going to be another Poison-type Pokemon. You'd really expect this backlane to just be a hard answer to, Corviknight to be a hard answer to these double Poison backlines, but honestly, this is not as comfortable as I'd like it to be. Crunch does a lot of damage to me there. This one, for some reason, looks like they could two-shot my Corviknight, and that is not looking great. Ironhead going to come through, draw the shield, but this is so awkward right now where I don't know if we can survive this next charge move. They didn't debuff us, but they've done so much fast move pressure. There's a chance they can knock us out here, and if they can, then this might be game over. They get the debuff, but they don't quite knock us out. We survive long enough to reach the Sky Attack, which should knock out this Drapion, or at least put it close enough to range where our Shadow Drapion could deal with it later on, and in comes their Toxapex once again. This should be the game at this point, though. Shadow Drapion is healthy enough to survive 2 brines here, reach 2 charge moves against this Toxapex, and maybe even just farm down that, that Drapion in the backline. Maybe even 1 Crunch is going to be enough here to knock out this Toxapex. It's pretty low at this point. Yeah, it does get KO'd by 1 Crunch, and in comes the Drapion, but not quite enough to take out my Shadow Drapion. All right, next game, Annihilate up against the Diggersby. A lot of Diggersbys today. I'm going to try my best to keep switch once again, keep this away from our Shadow Drapion, but our opponent this time not even swapping out. They're staying in a very bad matchup for them. With that said, I do have to land close combats if I want to do any sort of real damage to this Pokemon, so I do have to debuff my defense stat, which is a little unfortunate. They get a Scorching Sands through, luckily no defense drop, but I am forced to throw a close combat here. Our opponent could shield this up if they are feeling very risky, but they do end up letting it go. We one-shot the Diggersby, and in comes an Azumarill. I feel like my Annihilate is going to be more served in the backline. I don't want to just completely waste it here against that Bunny, so we save swap our Shadow Drapion and bait out an Annihilate. This Pokemon obviously is a pick that is a little tricky for our whole team to deal with, especially down energy, but because we have energy on our Annihilate, and we are able to draw a shield here with our Drapion, maybe even a second shield, because this is a Shadow Annihilate, they have to shield basically everything. We might just be able to go for this crunch, draw their final shield, go for a Rage Fist with our Annihilate, and then I think our Corviknight at this point should be able to close out the end game against that Azumarill. In comes our own Ape. We are close to the Rage Fist. We end up going for it. I think we even won CMP here. This could be enough to knock out, but it might survive on like 1 HP here. Let's see what happens. They actually do, yeah, survive basically on exactly 1 HP. A little bit unfortunate, but that's still fine. We have a shield advantage Corviknight up against an Azumarill in the backline. I think this is totally fine at this point. We can stand attack down the Annihilate. They do swap out, but it doesn't really matter unless they can get a catch. It's going to be very hard, though, for an Azumarill using a 3-turn move to catch when I'm using a 1-turn move. Ice Beam as well, not doing too much damage to us, and we can reach a Sky Attack here in just a second. Sky Attack is a very powerful nuke move now. It used to be a bait move, but it's actually been reworked so many times at this point that's more of a nuke. You can see it is going to be able to 2-shot this Azumarill after the Sand Attack damage is going to start adding up here. So as long as we can shield up this move, make sure the Sky Attack lands, we can Sand Attack through the rest of the team. In comes the Ice Beam. They're not going to reach another one here. We see the bubble come through, so after 2 Sand Attacks, we are going to throw the Sky Attack on good timing to make sure no catch is possible. Sky Attack does land. Not quite enough to KO here, but at this point they are in Sand Attack range, and so is the Annihilate. All right, next game it's going to be Annihilate up against a Gastrodon here. A fantastic lead once again because our Shadow Drapion does get to avoid this matchup. In comes these Mud Slaps. They don't do too much damage to us, but they have access to Earth Power here, so we have to keep that in mind. In comes our first Rage Fist as well. This is going to do quite a bit of damage to them if they opt to let it through, but it's not going to one-shot them, so they do opt to let it go actually, and they're going to try to go for an Earth Power. I'm going to shield it up. I know it could be a Body Slam bait, but if they do bait a Body Slam, all they're going to get at this point is another Body Slam into our Monkey, and that's not going to do too much damage to us, right? I can no-shield this. I can farm all the way down and have a boosted either Rage Fist or Close Combat against whatever's going to come in. What is it going to be? What tries to farm us down at this point? It is going to be, it looks like our opponent is taking a second to decide. Taking more than a second here. It's going to be a Dugong, actually. Holy crap. A Dugong into my boosted fighter. Okay, I guess I'll take that. I'm going to go for these boosted Rage Fists. They no-shield the first one. That could have been a close combat. Good call by them, but they're going to have to shield this next one. Rage Fist is going to be boosted yet again. Our counters have put them deep into the yellow, and this likely would knock out if it went no-shield. We get yet another counter, putting them deep into the red. At this point, I don't know what could beat us in the backline. It would have to be some sort of huge core breaker for us. They do end up going for an Icy Wind, which will debuff our attack stat, but what is their final Pokemon this game? I guess that makes some sense. It's a double Ice and Water type backline. Actually, a little bit tricky for us right now. I don't know if we're going to take this out. Our opponent goes for a lot of energy here before throwing a move. I want to clear my debuff. What are they going to throw against us? Earthquake? Okay, I was not expecting that. I thought Icicle Spear for sure was going to come through. That is not the move to throw against the Flying and Steel-type Pokemon. Maybe they didn't realize those resistances counter each other. Icicle Spear is just the best move to throw, but I guess I'll take it there. That's a lot of energy down the drain. Despite that, I think we'd be in a good spot, even if they did end up throwing the bait move there, because we have so much energy on Corviknight. We even shield up an Earthquake properly on this Walrein. I wonder if they're like a single-move Walrein or something at this point. I don't even know. But we'll farm down all the way on the Dugong, and we have so much energy on Corviknight and on Shadow Drapion. Not much they can do at that point. That was kind of a crazy one there. Next game, Malamar, not a great lead, but we do have access to 2 Pokemon in the backline that can resist Psychic-type damage and generally put in a lot of work against this Pokemon. So we're going to come in with our Shadow Drapion, build up as much energy as possible, shield up the Superpower because this would do a massive amount of damage to us, and see what comes in. Looks like this time it's going to be a Diggersby that comes into our Shadow Drapion, which is a Pokemon that can resist these Poison-type fast moves that I'm running, but these Water-type charge moves are going to do a lot of damage to them. Aquatail number 1 comes through. I'm going to just overfarm here because I know at this point I will have to double shield if I want to get all of my energy off, which I'm fine doing because if I get the double shield here, they're gonna have to double shield themselves if they want to reach the next move here and survive these Aquatails. So it's totally fine at this point for me to just overfarm and throw back-to-back Aquatails once again. If they want to go for switch advantage, they can be my guest. Honestly, I'm kind of fine, though, if we lose switch anyway, because at this point, shields are down. I know I can just go... that was a weird glitch there. I was tapping the Aquatail, wasn't doing anything. I don't think our opponent got any extra fast moves there. The game just kind of froze for a second. But at this point, I can just go for a full farm down with our Annihilate, try to go for a close combat against that Malamar, and we should be able to neutralize it, so our Corviknight should have a lot more play in the back. They are going to stay in here. They throw a charge move. If this is a Scorching Stance, it's going to do a lot more damage than I'd like. I would assume that it is right now. Yeah, it does. It does almost half of our HP, but we still get that full farm down. We are 4 counters away from reaching a close combat. Malamar is going to be 5.5 counters away from reaching a foul play. So all we have to do here is go for this close combat and try our best to chip this down so our Corviknight does not have to deal with it. In comes the the close combat here, does a massive amount of damage to this Malamar, and the final Pokemon is going to be a Toxapex. This is super effective sand attack damage, doing one single damage to this poison type Pokemon. It's crazy. This move is so weak, it doesn't do 2 damage all the time. You need a lot of attack actually to guarantee a lot of matchups where you have breakpoints in, and that I think might be where I'm going wrong with Corviknight here. Maybe I need to build with a bit more attack so I have more damage against Drapion, against Diggersby, against Toxapex, because having only 1 damage here in this matchup is absolutely devastating. I'm going to throw yet another charge move. Sky Attack is going to come through, but they are surviving these fast attacks so much, they can maybe even swap in just a second here. But if they swap, I'm going to try to swap as well into my Annihilate. Our opponent is going to be able to swap right now. They come in with the Malamar, but they are only one side wave away from a charge move. I did not react in time, which means that now we're going to go down with our Corviknight, and unfortunately, I think we might have just lost this game, actually, in a matchup that we should have won if we had the breakpoint against that Toxapex. It wouldn't have even been close, but unfortunately, Toxapex able to survive our sand attacks and sky attacks just a little bit too long there. All right, an opposing Corviknight. Very interesting stuff here. I'm going to try our best to ramp up against this. Actually, that's a Steel Wing Corviknight, not even a sand attack Corviknight. Interesting moveset. I would expect most Corviknights to run sand attack, just because if you are running Steel Wing, you're probably just better off running Skarmory, who has Brave Bird, but this opponent ends up actually swapping into a Shadow Dragonair after the fact as well. In comes our first Rage Fist against this Pokemon. We are already ramped up 1 stage, so they're going to be guaranteed to shield this move, and our counters are going to add up so much against this. I'm going to no-shield at this point. Our Annihilate has done what it needs to do, and a Body Slam of all things comes through, so I'm kind of thinking maybe there's single moves right now. Maybe I can go for a full sand attack down with our Corviknight and no-shield the Body Slam here. Not going to do too much damage to us. What is it going to be? If it's an Aqua Tail and they just do a Body Slam against our Annihilate, that's kind of crazy. Our opponent throws the charge move. It is an Aqua Tail for some reason, so I guess they just Body Slammed us to assert dominance. I'm not quite sure. But with that said, in comes their own Corviknight here, and because I'm kind of thinking right now there could be a Mudboy in the backline. This is a very classic team. It used to be like Scar, Mudboy plus a Dragon type. If that is the kind of team that they're running, I do want to save my flying type a little bit more for the backline because our Shadow Drapion would not want to see that. But either way, we go for the Sky Attack here. It is not quite enough to knock out, but our opponent actually brings in the final Pokemon, a Shadow Palkia. I guess I should have assumed it was a Shadow Palkia in the back. How could I have thought it was anything else here? With that said, Sky Attack able to draw the shield. We can outpace them to a charge move here, and honestly, at this point, all we need to do is make sure that we can reach a charge move against this Palkia and an Aqua Tail or a Crunch against that Corviknight, and we should be able to win this game. In comes the Crunch. We overfarmed it just by a little bit here. I didn't want to overfarm too much and end up letting this Palkia to start ramping up and maybe even landing Aqua Tails against us. So we take them out here. We can reach the Aqua Tail against this Corviknight running Steel Wing, and this should close out the game. Very spicy team from our opponent. Double Dragon and running Shadow Palkia, not just in the Color Cup. I guess they're bringing it here into Open Greatly. GG's to them. All right, next game, Annihilate up against the Shadow Diggersby. Actually, very interesting pick. A Pokemon that was recently added into the game. I tried to swap out. I guess I missed the swap button for a second there, but this is so bad. A Shadow Gengar. This Pokemon is going to be able to do so much damage to us. I don't have a great answer to this, honestly. Even Corviknight with super effective Sand Attack, I don't think it would win the 2-shield matchup against this, so I'm going to try my best. If I was a little quicker on the swap, I might be able to have a consistent matchup with our Shadow Drapion, but I was so slow here. There's a chance they can reach 2 Shadow Punches, or 3 Shadow Punches rather, against us before we can reach 3 Aqua Tails against them in the 2-shield matchup. Aqua Tail going to draw their shield, and at this point, they are at back-to-back Aqua Tails or Shadow Punches right now, right when it reaches the final Aqua Tail. This is looking so bad. I think unless we can survive this move, which we can't. Are we about to get swept by a Shadow Gengar? There's a chance. These Sand Attacks, once again, doing nothing to this Shadow Pokemon. This is not looking good. I do no-shield the Shadow Punch, but this is so bad because I reach another Shadow Punch. They are close to another one, and I don't think I can win this game at this point. Shadow Gengar has absolutely dismantled my entire team at this point. I'm going to go for the Iron Head so I don't get the complete sweep to my opponent, but this is so bad I don't even know what to say at this point. In comes the Diggersby once again. We see the final Pokemon. It says Shadow Cresselia. I mean, on paper, we RPS that team. It's a Ghost and a Psychic in the back. Our team should beat that. But Shadow Gengar just destroyed me there. GG's to them. Next game, a Toxapex up against our Annihilate. We actually are going to instantly swap out there because while Toxapex is not a bad lead, I don't want to waste our Annihilate in a matchup like that, especially when I think that our backline could potentially be better off in a matchup like that. In comes a Gastron, though, to respond to us. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail. Our opponent actually opted to, for some reason, not to throw a charge move before we were able to get this Aqua Tail off, which means we get a shield advantage. And now, because of that, we can come with our Corviknight, try to go for a full sand attack down. But this is, once again, we're having no fast food pressure. Really is going to come in not handy here, I guess. Not be a good thing for Corviknight. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. But Corviknight, it's a Pokemon that it has no fast move pressure, right? No fast move pressure can make it so situations like this, which in theory are hard counter matchups, are super awkward. I have to swap out to my Annihilate to try to farm them down, and I have to try our best now to just ramp up with Annihilate and win this game that way. Rage Fist is going to come through here. It should do a decent chunk of damage, especially after getting the first boost. We are going to start ramping up massively with this Pokemon, and I just have to hope that our Annihilate, with a lot of energy and with a lot of boosts, is going to be able to close up the backline. Our opponent is going to overfarm a lot of energy here. They're going to be able to reach Brian in just a second, but I'm going to overfarm myself. I want to have energy for the backline, and I know at this point, as long as I can have energy for whatever is in the back, there is a good chance we can win this game, despite being in such a bad spot. We're going to go for the Rage Fist here. Our opponent, though, I think they might have made a nice catch, actually, on that Gastron. Fantastic play by them. I wish I could wait a turn, but honestly, at this point, I don't even risk it. Waiting a turn just doesn't seem to work for me anymore, so I just have to throw, and if a catch happens, a catch happens. Rage Fist number 2 going to come through. Actually, this might be number 3. I think it might be a +3 attack right now. +4 in just a second here, so we're going to be as boosted as an Annihilate can be, and depending on the final Pokemon, this could be either very good or very bad for us. In comes a Diggersby, a Pokemon that we have super effective counter for, but we don't quite reach a charge move. I catch the attack here on Corviknight, and I'm going to try my best to get to a close combat with our Annihilate later on. But they go for a massive undercharge, actually, which might be another way to win this game. Their win condition wasn't undercharge. That might have been a little bit too much, though, because they needed to come out of this match with a Fire Punch, but because they went for such a big undercharge, I'm able to actually reach a second charge move with our Corviknight and take the win here. That was a very interesting endgame. Those boosted counters doing so much damage to this Diggersby, and we are just able to barely clutch out the win there at the end of the game. GG's to them. Very fun day of battles here in the Go Battle Week. I know that the Corviknight here didn't have a great showing, honestly. Like, we had a lot of good games with it, but a lot of matchups where it was a little bit underwhelming to use. I don't know exactly how I feel about this Pokemon. It feels a little bit more of a niche pick than I thought it was going to be. Not having a cheap charge move makes it very hard to use in a lot of scenarios. Not having a lot of fast move pressure really makes it feel a lot more like Registeel, where you're really trying to go for a set attack down on things where you're doing almost no damage against. And if you maybe invest in an attack-weighted one, you can get more damage in other spots. But for the most part, I don't really know how I feel about this Pokemon. I don't like it too much just off of my first impressions, but maybe I need to give it another chance later on. All right, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you want to see live insights in my gameplay and see my teams early, I stream basically every single day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN. I'd love to see you there. The link to that is down in the description. And if you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you again for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.